we're suggesting you do it because we have done it and we are doing it and it works. It just flat out works, and we know that. Anyway, without any further ado, I want to bring Doc Fran back on. He's going to cover the next leadership, or the laws of leadership, which is, this one is E.F. Hutton. And I'm telling you, I'm getting so much out of these leadership series. You know, I keep looking for myself in those and trying to make sure that I'm lining up with it, and you should be doing the same thing. If you ever want to have a humongous group and team in business, you need to be a leader. And the best way I know how to be a leader is to, first of all, be a follower, submit to a system, submit to some mentorship, but to also pay very, very close attention to what Doc Fran is going to be sharing with us, because these are the key to becoming a very powerful leader in this industry or any other business for that matter. So with that, Doc Fran, take it away.
Well, I appreciate that intro, Casper, and thanks for the for the kudos and the follow-up on that. Yes, this is kind of fun, and tonight we're going to do the Law of E.F. Hutton, and the subtitle for this law of leadership is "When the Real Leader Speaks, People Listen." And you know, our industry, network marketing, is vastly different than any other organizational structure from the standpoint of leadership. And what I mean by that is, in your job, you will have various levels of leadership above you that have been designated or appointed as leaders, and which you pretty much have to adhere to and follow and do whatever they say, because that's job, and if you don't do it and you buck leadership, you find yourself without a job in many cases. And what's really interesting is noticing appointed leaders such as that, who have titles and positions conferred on them based on corporate hierarchies or business ownership or structure, often walk confidently into rooms full of people only to discover that they've totally misjudged the leadership dynamics in that situation. And, you know, I've seen that happen. Pardon me, the pollen is really bad here in Florida tonight, so my voice is a little scratchy, my eyes are a little burny, and my nose is a little runny. So please bear with me tonight. I'm going to try and ignore it and push through this. This was really clear to me in my other company, in one other company that I was with, where, you know, we had a CEO, we had a head of marketing, and we had a master distributor, all of whom believed that they commanded respect and leadership position based on their titles. But the reality was that the field pretty well ignored what they had to say, listened politely, and then when I spoke, the field followed. They tended to listen to what I said or recommended. And, you know, you've probably heard of E.F. Hutton, the financial services company. And, you know, years ago, their television motto and their commercials were very powerful. And it is "When E.F. Hutton speaks." And that's why I call this leadership truth the law of E.F. Hutton, because when the real leader speaks, people do listen. And the reason for that is the real leader holds the power, not just the position. Positional leaders do often tell their people something like this: "Hey, wait a minute, I'm the leader, you're supposed to follow me." But all of us know that that doesn't work, and it particularly doesn't work in a volunteer army such as a multi-level market company or a relationship marketing organization. And Margaret Thatcher, the British Prime Minister, summed it up perfectly by saying, being in power is a lot like being a lady. If you have to tell people you are, you probably aren't. So, and one way that you determine who is the real leader is by really looking around and observing the reactions of people in a meeting or in a group to the difference between who speaks and what their effect is. If you see a disparity between who's leading the meeting and who's leading the people's responses, then the person running that meeting is probably the positional leader, but they are not the real leader. So the next time you're in a meeting, I challenge you to look around yourself and see if you notice the difference between these two kinds of leaders. The first are positional leaders. These are people that have been conferred a title and therefore infer power. And they have certain characteristics. For instance, they tend to speak first, as opposed to real leaders who tend to speak later. Positional leaders need the influence of the real leader to get things done. And real leaders need only their own influence to get things done. And finally, positional leaders influence only other positional leaders. That's why management often sticks so tightly together, whereas real leaders influence everyone in the room, including the positional leaders. So the job of a real leader, folks, is getting the job done. The real test of leadership isn't where you start out or where you're appointed. It's where you end up in terms of obtaining or achieving the goal and bringing the group along with you. And when it comes to identifying a real leader, that task can be much easier if you remember what you're looking for. Don't listen to the claims of the person professed leader. Instead, watch the reactions of the people around him. The proof of leadership is found in the followers. Real leaders move their followers. Now, how do real leaders become the real leaders within a group? Well, 7 key areas reveal themselves in leaders' lives that cause them to step forward as real leaders. The first of these is character, who they are. True leadership always begins with the inner person. People can sense the depth of character in their leader. Relationships. Real leaders have relationships, and it's based on who they know. You're a leader only if you have followers, and that always requires the development of relationships. The deeper these relationships, the stronger your potential for leadership will be. Building enough of the right kinds of relationships with the right people, and you too can become the real leader that is in you for your organization. And as an aside, one of the brilliant factors involved in this 21-day challenge is inherently your ability to build a deep and good, right kind of relationship with your up team. These are people that are leaders, demonstrated leaders, who do have your best interest at heart and will impart to you the types of insight and wisdom that we all need to improve and exceed in our leadership skills. Knowledge. The third characteristic or the third key area of a real leader is what leaders know. Information is vital to a leader, and you need to have a good grasp of the facts of your company or your business or your industry, an understanding of the factors involved, and a vision for the future. And, knowledge alone doesn't make you a leader, but without that knowledge, you can't become one. The fourth area is intuition, what they feel. Now, leadership requires more than just that command of data or the knowledge or information. It really demands an ability to deal with numerous intangibles. And so intuition in a leader is a very strong characteristic and a very valuable adjunct. The fifth area is experience. Where have they been? The greater the challenges a leader has faced in the past, the more likely followers are to give you a chance to prove that you are capable of leading them in their current situation. The sixth area is past success. What have you done? Nothing speaks to followers better than a good track record. And every time I extended myself and took a risk and succeeded, followers had another reason to trust my leadership ability, my ability to navigate for them, if you remember last week's, and to listen to what I had to say. The seventh key area of leadership is ability. What can you do? The bottom line for followers is what a leader is capable of. And as soon as you're no longer in their belief system, as soon as they no longer believe that you can deliver for them, they will stop listening and they will stop following. But once you have a handle on the law of E.F. Hutton, you'll understand that people listen to what the real leader has to say, not necessarily because of the truth being communicated in the message, but because of their respect for the real leader. So ask yourself, how do people react when you communicate? When you speak, do people listen? And I mean really listen. Or do they wait to hear what someone else has to say before they act? You can find out a lot about your level of leadership if you have the courage to ask and answer that question. And that, folks, is the power of the law of E.F. Hutton. Next week, we're going to train on Law 6, the law of solid ground. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Thanks so much for your time and attention. Back to you, Casper.